And the theme that I wanted to talk about today was about being the witness. So this is also the theme that we're doing in our community container, our weekly gathering as well. So this is kind of setting off that more regular meeting. But what I wanted to talk about was this idea of, it's almost like we have been through an awful lot of healing and reflection and releasing, and you know what I mean. We've all been doing it, right? And coming up with old patterns of behavior, looking at the way that we are in certain situations. Many of you probably had job changes, maybe house changes, definitely changes in terms of the whole process that COVID has brought up. I think a lot of us have really gone through a lot of deep reflection about our personal worldview. So one of the things that you might be noticing is that it's almost never ending. Like there's always one thing and then another thing and then another thing, and then you clear that, and then there's another thing, then you clear that. And there's this process. I was reflecting today, I love the analogy of the ocean. And often when we talk about, when we go into meditation, it's like we drop under all the ripples that are happening around the surface. And the ripples could be all the egoic structures, or the he said, she said, or the stresses and the anxieties and the strains that we go through. And then when we go into meditation or our Reiki practice, then we drop under all of that so that we can begin to feel the deeper essence of ourselves. So it's like when we're coming into the body, we start to drop lower also with our awareness. So that's why a lot of the meditation focus, we kind of come into the breath, and then we move into the belly, down into the feet. So it's a way of connecting with the deeper aspects of ourselves. And the reason we do that is so that we can drop under all of the egoic blah, 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 the dramas, the things that are going on, and come into our deeper sense of self or our true nature. So the theme that I wanted to bring up is, I think many of us are starting to feel the exhaustion of all of our personal work. And often the personal work is working on the egoic structure. And this is something, particularly if you're quite invested in your personal growth, this can be a little bit of a difficult thing to hear, that actually what you're doing is you're trying to polish or minimize the waves at the top of the ocean so that the waves aren't quite so stormy. And for sure, over time, you can get to a point where it becomes calmer and calmer at the top as well. But then you're always going to get life events like wind, weather, just stuff that happens, a boat drives through, that creates all these waves. And those are out of your control. So no matter how much personal work we do in terms of polishing the ego, making the ego healthier, which has a huge amount of validity to that. So I'm not saying don't do all of that, but understand that there is a limitation to how much polishing and calming you can do, because there are so many other external factors that are always going to be shifting the weather, if you like. So the weather is constantly changing, it's out of your control. And if we focus too much on working through issues, so when things come up, I'm working on this issue, I'm releasing that past, I'm moving through this past life, I'm going through this ancestral healing, just like forever. If you focus on that, you will literally be busy for the rest of your life. And you might notice some success, but the success is always going to be as temporary as the next weather storm. So today, I would like to give some food for thought around the idea of, let's ignore that. Let's assume that we've done enough personal work now, that we have a relatively healthy mental egoic structure that is going to allow us to go into a deeper meditative connection with the deeper ocean. So the ability to drop down into an area whereby we feel more whole. And often when we do these Reijus, we will go into the body, we will send Reiki, and there's this feeling of kind of peace that happens and a feeling of connectedness with something very quiet. And that quietness, for any of you who dive, it's that quietness that you get when you submerge into the ocean. So the idea is, whenever you start this month, this is an experiment for this month, okay? Every time you start to notice the bubbling at the top, the anxiety, the fear, the stress, the procrastination, the indecision, the should I do this or should I do that, any of that, the ripples of the mind, whenever you have the mindfulness to notice that, how about experimenting with ignoring it, completely ignoring it, and dropping under? It's different from denial. What we're doing is we're dropping under it in order to feel if there's actually any movement or not required. So this is something that I've been really hit in the face with since moving. I only moved a couple of days ago, and I notice I'm shifting into frantic mode. I'm like, I need to find a more permanent place. I need to do, am I going to do this? Am I going to buy? Am I going to rent? And every time I notice I'm sparking like this, I'm not succeeding 100%, but I'm trying to move into the right space. So going deep inside my body and then noticing, is there actually any movement at the moment? Or is it just waves? And what I've noticed that is very interesting is there's no movement at the moment, actually. So all of this, it's a total waste of my energy and my time. And my feeling is that if I could simply accept that I am in the perfect time, perfect space, perfect people, for perfect everything, then there would be this much easier unfolding process that happens. I think the one thing that is tricky to get, and hand up, I'm still experimenting with this, so I'm not speaking from real experience, I'm speaking from beginnings of experience, is this dropping in to feel the movement. And this is what I found really interesting in this moment, because I've been experimenting with it before, but I haven't been bashed with so much external hubris. I don't know what the word is. Hoobaloop. It's like there's so much stuff in my mind at the moment that I think I need to get organized, because I've just landed, as it were, and I've got, I don't know where I'm going, and there seems to be so many decisions I should be making right now. But seriously, when I drop into my meditation and my Reiki, I get a really clear message that there is nothing to do right now, which seems so weird to me, because I'm like, well, that's the complete opposite of how I so-called feel. But actually, it's almost like my mind is grabbing onto it like fuel. So it's something to panic about, something to get anxious about, something to have drama around, something to be busy with. Because when I drop in, literally, I get this really strong feeling of it's all unfolding in perfect timing, just not as quickly as you want it to, in terms of the mind wants it to, but it is unfolding. And if that takes 6 months or a year or whatever, that's how long it takes. And then I can feel my mind going mental, because it wants solutions and it wants decisions and it wants to know what it is now. So this, for me, this gap between the way the mind wants things immediately sorted and categorized and solutionized, and then the unfolding process, which is a time and space, like a flower, right? You can't sit there and yell at the flower to open. It's going to open when it opens. And if you try and open it, you're just going to wreck it. So it is this thing if you have any opportunities this month where the mind is really trying to hook you into grabbing something or knowing something, or you know that feeling in your body where you're like, oh, I need to know. And if you can drop in. Now, it might be that when you drop in, absolutely there's a movement and you're like, oh, I need to do this, or oh, I need to do that. But what I've been noticing, which is quite interesting, is this difference of right movement, in Buddha's like right action. And this idea of right action is not right as in right and wrong. It's right as in movement. So where is the movement coming from? So when the movement comes from, it's really hard to describe it. It's like, you'll know it when you feel it. It's like there's this flow. There's just this flow that happens. It's just almost like lands on your lap. And when that happens, then it's almost like, wow, like law of attraction, like, wow, that's amazing, that happened. Whereas when you're grabbing, there is a feeling of contraction and stress. And I know we've talked about this a lot over the last couple of years, of really identifying what is the stress of your mind trying to make sense of everything we've been going through for years now. And what is the right movement? Because that right movement, or that unfolding process, if you can get into that flow, that is what it means to be in flow. And this is becoming more and more important because the environment above us is getting more and more intense. So if we're not able to drop under, it's just going to get worse. I really feel this when I look around at what's going on in the world. It's the pressure is just more and more and more and more. And if we're not able to identify the falseness of that pressure, if we buy into that, then there's going to be a lot more issues. So I know I do harp on about this a lot, but I feel that it's a really important stage we're at now of it's make or break. It's if we either are able to identify our life flow and go with it in a stream or a level of unfolding that is natural and beneficial and joyful, relaxed, or we grab onto all the stuff that's happening above and we literally just get thrown back and forth by the waves. And it's going to be a very, very uncomfortable ride if that's the only place we know, right? So let's go in and take a look. So the meditations are really an opportunity for you to come in with your Reiki, to hold the space with the Reiki with everybody else. It's a really powerful group healing. And just see for yourself. So what am I talking about when I say come into the body, come deep in the body, lower? So go lower. The lower you can go, the more peaceful it is. Okay, so it's dropping away from, the further you can get from the mind, basically, the better it is, because that's the solidity of our body, which is like the trunk of a tree. And so it is very calm in there. And if you think of all the branches, I'm using a lot of analogies here, I know. If you think of all the waves, like I've got a lovely willow outside, but it's quite windy, so it's like flapping around, but the trunk is solid. So that's the kind of essence of where we're trying to go in our meditation, to show you where your peace and essence is, so that you can start to return to it whenever you start noticing that you're flapping around, either if you want to use the wave analogy or the weeping willow analogy, whatever you want to use, or some other analogy that you come up with, frantic clouds flying through the wind or whatever. So the way that we do that is with the attunements. We have this lovely experimental phase also with the Reiki, where we can really invite and pull down the Reiki into ourselves. And for those of us who can do attunements, we're also holding space for you by bringing the attunement into our space together. Then I do a guided meditation for about 20 minutes. And Again, if you'd rather listen to music and just feel into the energy, then feel free to just mute me as well. So I do turn off my video, and I'll pop back up again when I finish so you can follow on if you're not listening to my voice. So we start off coming into Gassho, prayer pose, which simply means hands coming together, and you bring them in front of your heart center. And we begin to collect ourselves just through the breath. As you inhale, paying attention to the rising. And as you exhale, noticing the chest is falling, maybe in the belly as well. Starting to bring your attention up to the top of the head, the crown. And imagining a 1,000-petaled lotus right at the top of your head and allowing it to open. And notice that it simply opens by itself, and you intend in the Reiki attunement. You could try to breathe it in. You might notice lights or sensations from the top of your head, pouring in through the 1,000-petaled lotus down into the chest, the heart, and then with every out-breath, you're inviting that Reiki to go from the heart center down through the arms into the hands. Feeling into the sensations of the hands, maybe tingling or heat, or just a calmer alertness of the fingers, the fingertips. And whenever you're ready, bringing your hands somewhere on the body. Sometimes it's nice to bring your hands into the middle of the chest and one hand down on the belly. But as we're focusing down in the belly, you might place both hands on the tummy area or on the thighs, just wherever feels comfortable and relaxed. Continuing to focus on the breath, seeing if you can bring it just a little bit deeper into the belly without any forcing. Elongating ever so slightly so that you're breathing into the belly before coming up into the chest and shoulder tips. And as you exhale the other way around. So exhaling from the shoulders down through the chest, and finally a little squeeze of the belly. And as you breathe, like the waves rolling through the belly and the chest, up into the shoulders and back down, as you exhale, you allow that exhalation to relax the shoulders, the back, and finally the belly. Now bringing your attention to the hands wherever they are on your body. Bringing attention to the hands themselves. Noticing if there's any sensations in the palms or in the fingers. But also bringing your attention under the palms, into the body itself. Noticing if there is any sensations underneath, such as heat, buzzing, tingling vibrations. And playing around with the breath. So as you inhale, intensify the intention of the Reiki around your hands. And as you exhale, imagine them going through your hands into your body and spreading all the way through. So you end up intending the Reiki all the way through the body, every cell, all the way down to the feet, all the way up into the head, into the torso. And continuing to focus into the body, away from the mind as much as possible. And if you can, see if you can drop your attention all the way into the pelvis, deep in the belly. And you might imagine it as a deep well or a lake. But for some people, it might feel more spacious, like a microcosm of a black hole or a cosmic little center of the universe. Just feeling into how it feels all the way down there. So that any noises that come through, any distractions that are happening, either in the mind or in your environment, feel quite different and distinct, like a different world, further apart, as your focus centers deep in the belly. Noticing a stillness. May feel quite dark, but not in an impressive way at all. Very spacious cosmic darkness, or deep in the ocean where there is stillness and calm. And it feels very comfortable, almost homely. And even if the mind is still busy and active, it's almost like you can see it as ripples or waves. Many little ripples, maybe some big waves. But as you look up from deep in your belly, it feels trivial, nothing to worry about. And perhaps you are grappling with a certain decision or certain activity. And just very gently, almost like you're dropping it down from the mind. See if you can just bring it down into the belly, just to see if there's any movement. Notice for yourself. Is the unfolding happening? Is there some patience required? A further piece of information, perhaps? or simply a timing. And noticing if there's movement or not. Allowing that process to unfold in its own time and place. Noticing when you're popping back up into the mind, if the mind has objections or thoughts or ideas. Just simply redirecting your attention back down into the belly. Into the stillness. Noticing the breath if you get distracted. And how the breath is constantly there for you. Checking in with the Reiki. See if you can feel it throughout your entire body now. Not only around your hands, but also tingling in your feet, all through all the cells, up into the mind. Bringing your attention out into the aura. And filling that with Reiki too, if it's not already feeling like that. Your outer buffer. And see if you can extend that feeling all the way out to everyone else on the call today. Everyone listening later. No time, no space. All of us sitting in this same deep vibration, following our flow, connected with our essence and the unfolding. And maybe as you notice that, it helps you to anchor a little bit deeper, feeling the support and the healing from each and every one of us as we share this frequency, this understanding. And continuing to breathe. Focusing on the internal life. And bringing in whatever sounds, whatever thoughts, not pushing anything away. Also not paying it any importance. It's just the flotsam and the jetsam, the drama, the movement. And we can focus on that, or we can continue to drop our attention deep into the body, following the deeper movement of our life flow, being guided by that, conserving our energy, not scattering it about, but keeping it centered, grounded, peaceful. Grateful for all the experiences, including the busy mind, but honing our ability to be the witness, to be the observer, not the victim, not carried away or obsessed. Not forgetting our inner peace. Noticing if the breath has become a little bit deeper in the belly. Noticing if any areas of the body have started to tighten or tense again. And keeping this feeling of stillness and this feeling of serenity. Giving your fingers and toes a little wiggle. Deepening the breath. And whenever you're ready, opening your eyes.